Hello and welcome to the Motherhood Circle video series. I'm your host, Ashley Winning, and today I sat down with Purdey, a real-life mum, who talked about her 7-year journey to becoming a mother. Now, we got to unpack a lot of on her journey and a lot of revelations that happened along the way. One of them being her husband and her having really large conversations, really heavy conversations in regards to what kind of parents they want to be, what kind of support they were going to offer each other, and what sort of roles they were going to take. And we see that unfold in this story on how that actually blossomed when they did eventually have their beautiful daughter. It took 7 years, and we learned about all the triumphs and tribulations along the way. So join me on this journey. Grab a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, and ice cold water, snuggle up on your couch and watch this. Enjoy, ladies. Hi, Purdey. Thank you so much for coming on today. I'm really thrilled to be sharing your story. How are you going?
Yeah, really good. It's a bit hot and sweaty here in Darwin today. We've had a lovely morning outside, but aircon's pumping, so feeling much better now.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad that you've got the aircon pumping. You've had a little shower and you're getting all nice and cool now in the aircon. So you're here to share your story today about your journey through motherhood. Can you start by introducing us to your family and letting us know who is in your family?
Yeah, absolutely. So me, obviously, and my husband, Mark, and our beautiful baby girl, Sophie, who's 2 years, 3 months. Wow.
I know, the time goes so quickly, doesn't it? And Purdey, your journey to motherhood was a bit of a lengthy one. Can you go through the process and let us know how you got onto your journey?
Yeah, it was a very windy journey that ended up, we went through IVF to actually get to Sophie. But sort of it started, so Mark and I are high school sweethearts, so have been together 20 years this year, which is a bit scary, over half my life. And so we got married in 2005. I was 24 at that stage. And we had talked about having kids and knew that that was something that we both wanted to do, but we weren't ready to do it at that point. We were still far too young, despite the fact that at that age my mum was about to have her second. So how quickly the generations change. We sort of, carried on through life for a few years, and then we're like, okay, we're grown up enough now to have children, and I went and had my implant removed. And by that stage we had already had friends and family that had gone through rather extensive journeys, and I think 3 or 4 that had done IVF to varying degrees of success, and sort of made quite a conscious decision at that point that, well, I'll get the contraception taken out, but we won't put our lives on hold. We'll just, it'll happen. We'll have kids. But we didn't want to be, I didn't want to be counting days and taking temperatures and doing all those sorts of things. We'd just, go with it. And after about 3 years, we kind of went, this is not happening naturally. Maybe we need to go and see the doctor. We toddled off to our GP, and it's a very confronting conversation to have with your GP to go, we're trying to get pregnant and it's not working. And
how long had you been trying before you toddled off to the GP?
That was 3 years at that point. And so then she said to us, so what have you been trying? Sex, that's what we've been trying. And asked us a whole bunch of other questions, and did a couple of tests, and then gave us a referral to the local fertility clinic up here, which is Repromed. And we sort of took a couple of deep breaths and then booked in for our appointment with the fertility clinic, and we're really blessed in the end to get a lovely doctor who you either love her or you hate her, but she's a very matter-of-fact lady, and some people take that as not having bedside manner, but she was very like, so what have you tried? And we looked at each other again with this what have you tried question, going, well, we've been having sex for 3 years. That's what we've tried. And yeah, she was like, but what else have you tried? You know, what you've seen on the movies? And we went, no, why would we try that? And Mark, we talked about me doing this interview today, and he's not ready to share the whole ins and outs of why we have infertility, but basically we got sent away to have some tests done, but then also to do a home-based version of IVF, which is get a specimen cup and a test, a syringe, and Mark does his deposit, and then I use the syringe to put it in the appropriate place. Totally unromantic.
Were you taking any, were you having any hormones or anything like that at this point either?
Not at that point. Yeah, okay. No, not at that point. Like, you know, good old pregnancy multivitamin, but that was about it. Mm-hmm. So she sent us away at that stage to check, you know, to try that for at least 6 months. But, you know, if it hasn't happened within 12, come back to me.
And you were so patient as well, because I honestly, like, you waited 3 years. I know people who were like not falling pregnant in 3 months and they're like, I've got to go and get IVF. I need to go get some support and help. And I think I would have been like that as well. And you were just so blasé and calm about it.
We made quite a conscious decision when we decided we were, you know, grown up enough to have kids, that we would never put our lives on hold for that. And we had seen friends go through that nothing else in their world happened. It was just, it was all about having a baby, and we can't go out for dinner tonight because it's that time. And, we can't buy a new car because we might be pregnant next month, and we can't do this and we can't do that. And we really made quite a conscious decision that wouldn't be our life. And I don't know why we did that. I guess from seeing other people do it, but we, like, from the point that I went off the contraception, it was always, we will live life, and at whatever point I get pregnant, we'll go with it from there. So in that time, you know, we bought an investment property, we went on this amazing holiday to America and lots of other holidays, and you know, bought cars and bikes and did all these things because it was never, oh, we can't do that, we might get pregnant.
I love that. It's such a different story to actually hear. I don't think I could have done that, but I admire you for doing that, because there's nothing worse than putting your life on hold for something that could effectively take a couple of years to happen. It sounds like you had a lot of fun in that time too.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to end up in a journey that we might not have ended up with children, and I didn't want to have wasted, in inverted commas, you know, potentially 7 years of our life. That's how long it took. So, and I just had to butt in there and ask that question.
Because I just think it's very interesting as well, and I think that it's important for other people to know that there is another way, you know, that we can try to be relaxed about it. But so you were literally, you had gone and saw the doctor, then you started trying with this.
We started trying at home, and I think that's when the emotional side really got to me. Like, we knew that we both wanted kids, but I really struggled at that point. I really was like, well, if it doesn't happen naturally, we're not meant to have kids, and it's $10,000 a go for the IVF, and I was just like, that is a ridiculous waste of money for, you know, maybe I don't want children, I don't know if I'm going to be a good enough mum, and I was really hitting my straps in my career, and, you know, was on Australian boards and doing some amazing things, and was like, I don't have time for a child in my life. My life would be so much easier if I just didn't have children. So no, maybe I don't want children. How much do I really want this? Do I want this enough to spend that amount of money? And went through that whole entire process.
Do you think that was about money, or do you think that was about, like, being scared of not ever having a child?
I think part of it is that the fear of failure, of it not working, investing that amount of energy and heart and soul into that process, and then still not coming out. Because up until that point we had been, if it happens, it happens, you know, la-di-da-di-da. But if we went down IVF, it was there would be a definite
Yes
you're
or no.
not pregnant. You tried and you're not pregnant.
Yeah.
And I didn't know whether I was ready for that. But took myself on this whole little journey. And I say took myself because Mark was very, I want to try. But I'm not the one that has to have all the injections, so I'll support your decision. Yeah. And so interestingly, we got to the point, so that was another 3 years from our first appointment. And sort of, well, probably 2 years after, I was like, oh, maybe I do. And over that sort of the year leading up to the year we did IVF, we had lots of soul searching and conversations. And I created a survey for my husband. We had decided that we were going to do IVF. And so I actually physically typed up a survey. If we do IVF, how many times do you want to do it? How long are we going to try for? We went looking for it. I can't find the survey that I typed up, but basically we got to the point where we agreed that we would do 5 rounds or 12 months, whichever came first. We agreed that at any point in the process, as if either of us changed our mind to stop or to do more, that we could have a discussion and make that decision. If we got to the end of the 5 or 12 months, we could see how we felt about it by that and, decide what our next course of action was. And so in about November 2015, we went back to the clinic and she was like, what's taking you so long? I presume you were pregnant.
Very logical about this whole process as well. I know for me it was very
Mark and I are both that personality type, so that really helps when we're both that personality type.
I can imagine sitting down and doing that. For me, it was just like, I want a baby now, and I'll do anything to have this baby. And obviously everyone is so different. So it's so interesting to see that you went to the effort of doing this survey and having these conversations before you had this baby. Like, you had these proper conversations and you asked all these important questions. I think that's really great and a real credit to both of you to have these conversations before. And
really getting down to, well, how much do you want this baby? Do you want it enough that you're prepared to change pooey nappies? Because it's not going to be me that's going to be doing them all. Like, we both have to want this baby. So we really got down to that point, and we actually had a serious conversation about Mark being a stay-at-home dad and me going back to work. Breastfeeding and how long for, and like we talked about just about every topic there is. Co-sleeping, who's going to get up in the middle of the night, how long am I going to have off? So we knew that we were on the same page going into that parenthood journey, and so we had all of that conversation in the lead up to the IVF, that we're like, right, I know that if it's successful that we are in this together. So, I'm not going to be hanging out on my own with a baby going, holy crap, what have I got myself into? So, end of 2015, we headed back into the clinic to, have a conversation and go, okay. And like at that point, I was still like, oh, yeah, I think we'll do it next year. Still being quite cautious. And back to our doctor again. We walked out of the appointment booked in for January because she was like, right, you're going to do this and you're going to go and have this scan and do that test and blah, blah, blah. And it was the best thing that could have happened, because had she not done that, it probably would have taken me another 6 months to go back and say, okay, I think we're ready now.
Yeah.
But she booked us in for January. And so that meant that 2016 was the year we were going to have a baby, and we actually didn't plan a holiday for that year, and we put our money into having IVF that year. And I remember someone saying to me when I said, oh, I don't want to spend all our time thinking about it. And she said, but what would happen if you gave yourself permission to actually focus on it and concentrate on it for a period of time? And so basically I gave myself permission to emotionally invest in it for 12 months and see where it went. So we did our first egg collection and all the needles. So, right down to my husband has a morbid fear of needles. If you go near him with a needle, he goes as white as a sheet of paper.
Oh, no.
He said, honey, I'll support you. I'll stand next to you, but I can't give you needles. You're going to have to do them yourself. So, we'd had all of those conversations. So, we started the injections, and the way the clinic works up here is that they do everyone's egg collection in the last week of the month. So everyone's all lined up, and the surgeries are all lined up, and I was taking forever. So I was due to have the egg collection on the Wednesday and didn't end up happening till Friday because I just wasn't responding to the drugs as well. The follicles weren't growing as quick as they should. So the IVF process basically is that they give you huge amounts of hormones so that you grow more than one egg in a go. So normally every month you produce one. So they aim for 10 eggs and they hope from that you'll end up with 4 embryos. So it took longer. I didn't respond very well to the drugs, but they collected 6 eggs. And then so I go into surgery. Mark waved me goodbye into surgery. Then he ducks off to the clinic and makes his contribution to the creation. And he comes back and picks me up as I come out from the surgery.
So when you went to the surgery, that was for them to collect the eggs?
That's to collect the eggs,
Okay.
yeah. So there's a couple of different ways that they can do it, but I did it under full general anaesthetic. I was knocked out. They do sometimes they do them under a local. I don't reckon I could deal with that. Maybe after having my Caesar, I don't know. But I was quite glad to be knocked out, and they sort of wander around. And so you have a trigger. So you're having 2 injections a day in the lead up, sort of 2 or 3 weeks before egg collection. And then I think it's 18 hours before your egg collection, you take a trigger injection, which is the hormone that triggers the follicles to mature. And, if you're in a normal monthly cycle, they would erupt from your ovaries and off down the fallopian tubes. They've got to catch them, got to collect them before they erupt, because if they erupt, then they're gone. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. So it's all timed very specifically, and all the injections you've got to have at certain times of the day. And I got quite good in the end. I could do my injection while we were sitting in the movies in the dark. So that was unheard of. To start off with, I would sit with the needle for I don't know how long, just holding it against my skin, going, "Oh, I'm ready to stick it in."
Yeah. I remember having the insulin with gestational diabetes. I don't know if you had that, but that was a big deal. But then by the end of it, it was like, whatever, Yeah. But it's scary. It's not a thing that we normally do, so it's a scary.
Yeah, it's different. But and you think about people that have to take needles every day, you just get used to it. And remarkable how quickly you do get used to it. So, so unfortunately from that first egg collection, we ended up with 2 embryos, but they weren't very good quality. They did transfer one, but explained that they weren't very good quality. And it was unsuccessful. And it sucked when my period came. So you go into what's called the 2-week wait. So you do your egg collection, everything goes back to the lab. There's 2 different ways they can fertilize the eggs. Basically, they can tip the sperm sample in with the eggs and let nature take its course. Or they can individually look at all the sperm and pick the best quality ones and pick them up with a needle and inject them into the eggs, which is called ICSI. And so we had that. Based on Mark's sperm tests and stuff, they decided they wanted to do that as well. So we ended up, you get sort of daily updates, how many fertilized, how many are still alive on day 2, 3, and then...
Do they know the gender when they're doing that process? Or
No. So you can have them tested before you have them transferred, but we chose,
leave it.
Yeah, so we transferred, and then you go into what's called the 2-week wait, and you're pregnant until proven otherwise. So you walk out of the clinic on a high, and it's basically like having a pap smear when they put the embryo back in. My poor husband, came with me. Of course, we were getting pregnant. You have to be there. But lots of women don't. They go on their own. And so your legs up in the air, think pap smear. And, yeah, a doctor and 2 nurses and him going, oh, my God, what is happening right now? But it takes about, 15 minutes, and you walk out going, well, that didn't really feel like anything, but apparently I'm pregnant now. And you go into 2-week wait, and you either get your period in that time, or if you don't, you go off for a blood test to confirm you're pregnant or not. Unfortunately, my period came, I think a day or 2 before I was due to go for my blood test, and it wasn't a great surprise because they had been quite clear that they was not good quality and they didn't think it would work, but it still sucked. My other piece of advice that I give people in IVF is tell people. We had a core group of friends, I didn't tell the world, but a core group of friends, my parents, colleagues who all knew what we were going through. One, so that if I was crazy with hormones, there was some understanding for that, but also when it didn't work and I wasn't devastated, but I was like, well, this sucks, that they understood that as well. I think having made the decision that we would have 5 rounds and having had that plan actually really helped me move through that loss really quickly. Like, it was a couple of days where I was just like, well, the world just sucks. But then, quite quickly picked myself up and dusted myself off and went, okay, right, what are we doing now? So that was January. Yeah, we had to have a month off, and then March we went again. So I had to do a full, complete egg collection again. So normally you would do an egg collection and then be left with a few embryos, and so the next ones is just the transfer process. You don't have to do all the injections again, but I had to do the whole gamut again. New set of drugs, because it's a bit like there's a basic vanilla cake recipe, and then they start everyone on that, and then depending on how well you cook, they change up the ingredients a bit. So yeah, slightly different drugs, and I responded better. Still took longer, but we got 9 eggs and they were better quality. And we ended up at the end of the 5 days growth with 2 embryos. So they transferred 1, and that gave us beautiful Sophie. And we have 1 still sitting on ice, waiting to decide even now what we're going to do with that. We haven't decided whether we'll transfer the other one. We think we might do it this year. I think
that's exciting, isn't it? That's so exciting. I'm excited already for you.
Yeah,
and
so
I get to see all your beautiful photos of Sophie, and see her grow up in that, and all the fun things that you do. It's really beautiful.
And it's crazy to think that the first photo that we have of her is at 5 days old, as in 5 days past conception. It's amazing to watch, and I'm so blessed for the amount of science and things that have gone into that. And my pregnancy, I was pretty crazy by all accounts. I didn't end up with gestational diabetes, but pregnancy and that newborn haze, I think because we had so many conversations, and because, not to say that she was more wanted than anybody else, but because we'd had such a long lead up time and for her arrival, my attitude has been, the nights are long, but the years are short. And even when she's driving me mental, which isn't that often, the ability to just take a deep breath and go, I know how hard I worked to get you here. We will get through this.
Yeah. And you have a lot of patience too.
Yeah, and Mark has bucketfuls more patience than I have, and he is amazing with her. The bond that they have and the amount of time that they spend together is just beautiful. And I was really lucky. I had 14 months off, and we both said we couldn't have picked a better time in our lives to have a kid. We both got brilliant jobs. I had a job where I was able to get paid mat leave and have time off and go back to my position. And, you know, we're just really stable. So I'm kind of glad we didn't have her straight away, you know, when we started trying, because we're in a much better position financially, you know, our relationship, and just life, you know, we've lived. I don't feel like we're missing out on things. I have no interest in going out clubbing. Like things that we were still doing when I was 24 and we started trying to have a baby. So yeah, I think we're really, really lucky that the plan that life had for us is, we just had to go with it. Yeah. It's all worked out in the end.
Yeah. And did Mark, you know, all those conversations that you guys had in that, it sounds like Mark obviously stepped up to the plate and fulfilled everything he said he was going to do.
Yeah, he has never once discovered a pooey nappy and handed it over and said it's your turn. The nights, and so he had 8 weeks off when she was first born, which was just bliss. Just nappies and putting her to sleep. At one stage, he was better at putting her to sleep than I was. I think I'm the flavour of the month at the moment, but yeah, he's in. It doesn't matter what it is, and he's involved. So I'm just so blessed. And yeah, he's a big kid, so they get along like a house on fire. But yeah, things down to my husband, given the choice, would eat steak and mashed potato for every dinner and does not like vegetables. But true to his word, sits and eats every vegetable on his plate now, because, you know, when we have a family, you will eat your vegetables in front of the children. And he does.
Wow, you had those kind of conversations, like full conversations.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So they toddle off to swimming lessons and play shack, and come back, and she's learnt how to jump on the trampoline or go down the slide, and I get to bake with her, but they're always laying on the floor or doing jigsaw puzzles. And I am painting a rosy picture here. Our life is by no means perfect.
Yeah.
There's still arguments in our household, don't get me wrong. There is still nights that especially young and breastfeeding, that I would stare at him with his useless nipples, snoring away in the bed beside us.
I can relate to that. Love them, but at the same time, you're like, why?
Why? Yes, in our weather, he used to go shirtless quite a bit and still does. And she was like, oh, nipples. Oh, no, those don't help. They don't have what I'm looking for. But yeah, just that ability to have had those conversations, there was just no questions asked when she came along. He just did it. And, I ended up having a Caesar, and she ended up getting whisked off to NICU because she had really low blood sugar, and he just went with it. And, on day 2 or 3, when she was still in the NICU and I had a, funky stomach from having the Caesar, and I swear to God I could still feel her kicking, and I knew she wasn't in there, but I couldn't see her, and bawling and all the emotions that went with that. And he just picked me up and took big hugs and took me in to see her, and whatever it was, whether it was bringing the breast pumps or filling bottles or washing bottles or feeding me while I was stuck under her on a 4 hours worth of cluster feeding. He just made it happen. And I know we would have made it work anyway, but I think the foundation that we set for ourselves with all of those discussions leading up to IVF just meant that we were on the same page, and we knew what the expectation of each other was, and it just made it so much easier.
Yeah, I can definitely see the importance of having those conversations and setting those intentions, and even visualizing that in your mind. You know, both of you, you're going off and visualizing, okay, so when I'm going to be a mom or when I'm going to be a dad, these are going to be my duties. And often we can have different expectations, and we don't sometimes, as before we have children, we don't even have that conversation. And then that's why there's a lot, you know, sometimes it's like, can be really disruptive when you have a baby and you're like, this person is like old school parenting, this person's like new age and wants to do and they're just completely at each other all the time. So I think that really just sets the pace for, you know, a partnership together, and it just sounds so lovely. Like, even when you're talking about, I have a wonderful husband who, you know, has been so hands-on, and we had conversations before. We didn't have as long of time to have those conversations, but I definitely feel that it really helps. And I was just listening to you and it was bringing tears to my eyes, just joy that you guys have that support and love for each other. It's just beautiful.
They're not conversations that all happen together either. You know, we're talking about, you know, a fleeting conversation here and a fleeting conversation there. Apart from the survey, that was very much sit down. We're doing,
I love that survey.
Because it's a really hard face-to-face conversation to have. So this is a very much a side-by-side conversation. You know, driving in the car, this is not a sit down across the dinner table and look at each other lovingly in the eyes kind of conversation. So, you know, going for a walk and in the car where you're having that side-by-side conversation, it just, and giving yourself permission to actually have a change of heart, and giving each other permission to go, you know what, I know we talked about you being a stay-at-home dad, but actually I really want to have a go at staying at home and I want to do that. So can we have a conversation about that? Okay. Yep. Stay at home. Sounds good. Like, just because you've had a conversation and think you're on the same page doesn't mean you can't go back and review that discussion again later. I
love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story of patience and tribulation and trials. And there was so much great insight in there. And as always, your story always makes me so happy, and seeing you guys as a family. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you, and thanks for the circle. You know, I really love everything that you share in the group, and it's been great to have the different mums. So yeah, really appreciate it, and I look forward to hearing everyone else's stories. The videos have been great so far.
Awesome, thank you, Purdey. Thanks for watching this episode. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel, our mailing list, and follow us in our social channels so you never miss an episode. All our details are listed in the description box in YouTube. I look forward to bringing you another great episode next week. Welcome to our circle of support, Mama, with the Motherhood Circle. See you next week. With love, Ashley.